Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a deep dive review of a tool called Pipefy. Based on some great analysis from Best AI Project Hub, we're going to answer one big question. Can this thing finally solve your team's workflow chaos?
So let's just jump right in with a question that I'm guessing hits a little close to home for a lot of you. Does your day-to-day work feel like you're literally drowning in disconnected spreadsheets and email threads that just go on and on and on forever?
And let's be really clear, this isn't just a minor annoyance we're talking about. According to the source material, this kind of operational chaos has some serious hidden costs. You're losing tons of productivity, you're seeing expensive mistakes just fall through the cracks, and your best people are getting totally burned out.
Okay, so what's the fix? Well, the review we're breaking down today points to a potential answer. It's a tool called Pipefy, and they frame it as an AI-powered operating system for all your business procedures.
Now, the words you really want to latch onto here are no-code and non-technical teams. That is so important. This isn't some super complex tool that you have to hand over to your IT department. Nope, it's built for the people who are actually in the trenches, your teams in HR, finance, and operations, so they can build their own solutions.
That sounds great in theory, right? But it brings up the million-dollar question. Is this thing actually for you? To figure that out, the review breaks down the main users into three really distinct groups. First up, you've got the classic hero of any business, the operations manager. You know, this is the person whose entire job is to wrestle chaos into submission and just make things run smoothly.
So what keeps them up at night? Well, they need to standardize everything, from how you bring on a new client to how you approve a simple purchase order. They're desperate to get rid of all that mind-numbing manual data entry. And most of all, they need to actually see what's going on, to get a clear, auditable trail of how work gets done.
And here's where the rubber really meets the road. Check out this quote from a finance director. They said using conditional logic, which is really just a fancy way of saying if this, then that rules, was a total game changer for making sure everyone followed the rules for procurement. Okay, next up, the HR director. For them, the challenges are a bit different. It's not just about process, it's about people and really sensitive information.
For the folks in HR, it's all about walking that tightrope between being efficient and being secure. Yeah, they want to automate things like onboarding a new hire, but they absolutely have to do it in a way that keeps employee data safe and meets super strict rules like GDPR or HIPAA. There's no room for error there.
And for our third persona, the review dives into a pretty modern role that you see in a lot of tech companies these days, the product operations lead.
So the whole job of product ops is to bring some sanity to what the review calls the fuzzy front end of building a product. You know, they need a clean process for handling all the feature requests that come flying in from the sales team, and they have to coordinate all the moving pieces for a big product launch, often while plugging into tools the engineers are using, like Jira. Okay, so we know who it's for, but let's get real. Does it actually deliver? Does it work? Let's take a look at some of the hard proof that's presented in the case studies. Let's start with a big, bold number that just jumps off the page in one of the case studies, 70%. So what's that all about?
Well, that 70% represents a huge win for a financial tech company. They were able to slash the time it takes to onboard a new client. I mean, think about that. That's not just a small improvement. That fundamentally changes how fast that business can start making money from a new customer. And you don't just have to take the review's word for it. Here it is, straight from the head of operations at that firm. And notice the two things they called out. They could satisfy the regulators, and they could move faster. That's the dream, right? So what's the secret sauce here? Well, the review says it's this really powerful mix of things. You've got the easy, no-code builder, then you layer in some really practical AI that can just pull data right out of documents and emails, and it's all built on this foundation of rock-solid security, with all the fancy certifications you'd want to see like SOC 2. Now, to really get where Pipefy fits in the world, the review makes this super sharp comparison to Jira, a tool a lot of us know. And here's the bottom line. They're not competitors. Just think of it like this. Pipefy is for your business processes, the stuff your HR and finance teams do over and over. Jira is for your engineering teams, for managing code and bugs. Two totally different jobs. Now, for anyone thinking, okay, how do I actually do this? The source material gives a super clear 5-step roadmap. It's basically a cheat sheet for success. It says to start small, pick an easy win, and this is huge. Map out your new process on paper before you even log into the tool, and definitely get an internal champion to lead the charge.
So after all of that, the features, the users, the proof, what's the final word? What's the bottom line from the experts over at Best AI Project Hub? The final score is a really impressive 8.5 out of 10, but the real story is when you look at the details. Look at those incredible scores for security and core functionality, a 9.5 and a 9. That's huge. That slightly lower score for value for money is also interesting. It's a hint that you really need to be aware of how you're using your automation credits.
And all of that brings us to the final recommendation. The verdict is pretty clear. Pipefy is a huge thumbs up for its target audience in ops, HR, and finance. The only caution is for teams that might get confused and think it's a replacement for something like Jira. It's a specialized engine, not a one-size-fits-all toolbox. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. As you think about your own team, what's that one manual process that's just a total pain? Where's the chaos that's costing you the most in time, money, or just plain old team morale? Because that, right there, is probably the perfect place to start.